Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I'm Peter Hofstrasser. Hey, thanks so much for being here with me today. I'm here with you. I'm here with Jonathan Lau from InStride, the COO, and I'm extremely excited about this conversation about employers and employees and working with InStride and understanding how all these things come with education and skill sets. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Peter. I'm super excited as well. I think lots going on in the world relating to workforce and talent, and lots being talked about. So just really excited to have the opportunity to
Awesome.
chat.
Well, that was a really brief introduction for you. So you're the COO of InStride. Can you tell us a little bit about, what you do and what are the things that InStride is doing?
Sure, absolutely. So maybe I'll start with InStride. So, InStride started really as kind of the origins in the program between Starbucks and Arizona State University, the Starbucks College Achievement Plan. And what we saw there was just something that's such a transformative program by when an employer, a corporation is willing to invest in its people, right, and really make a difference and be thoughtful about it, that you can really make a difference in the people's lives, in the business itself, and really transform that whole piece. And so as ASU looked to scale that model, right, and try to figure out how else could we get more employers to do this as a way to really, maybe the name of your podcast, disrupt education, right, so to speak. How do we scale that? They realized very quickly that most universities, public universities, aren't built to do that themselves. Right. And so that was really the genesis of why we said, let's create a company like InStride that is built very purposely as a public benefit corporation to scale this model to more companies and more corporations to really kind of disrupt that education. And so, since its founding, we've served more than 42,000 working adults. We've working with partners like Aramark, Carvana, Magna, Banfield Pet Hospital, LabCorp, Prime, right? But all these different partners and really working with them to find ways to offer transformative education programs and workforce development programs really for them to really help not only solve things like student loan, right? So, through our programs, we've helped folks avoid about $400 million in student loans because companies are paying for it, but also really just driving real impact at the corporation. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. So just really excited. And, over time, we've kind of continued to expand that, knowing that corporations aren't looking only for undergraduate degrees or only for certain types of things, but how do we think through non-degree options and skill options and short courses and boot camps? And so making sure that we have that whole gamut. And so when we engage with a corporate partner, we can really tailor it to what their strategic objectives are and build a program that's fit for them to solve their business needs. So that's really kind of what we've been doing with InStride, and we're hoping to continue to grow, and very excited about that.
I am super excited. I got to give a shout out to Carvana because number one, awesome work there because my wife actually bought her last car on Carvana. Super cool experience. And well, let's dig in first before we jump into, all the different things that are happening in workforce education. I have to ask, what was Jonathan like as a student? What was your educational path? And take us through that journey.
Sure, absolutely. So it's fun, right? So I'm wildly fortunate, right? I will be the first to admit it. I've been wildly fortunate just throughout my education. I think there's a Chinese saying, 孟母三迁, which is this philosopher, their mom moved to 3 different places to make sure that philosopher went to a good school. And that was my parents, right? There was always, what's the right school? So I changed school a few times actually growing up because my parents wanted to make sure I was learning Chinese, I was learning English, I was learning, right, all of that. And so I was very fortunate in kind of growing up in that space. And then my parents said, you need to go to boarding school because that's what you need to go do, prep school, right? That's what it means to go be successful, to get into a good college. You need to do that. So, my parents just constantly, because they saw what it did for them. Right? They were both immigrants. They came to the US because of college, right? They were able to come because of university. They got the degree here. They then got their advanced degree, and then they became lawyers, right? Lawyers, accountants, and others, and been able to be successful in life. And they saw what that did for them, and that's what they wanted for me. And so I was very fortunate in that, and was able to go through very good schools, right, and throughout. But I think the interesting thing that I found was my education didn't stop there. Right. And so when I graduated, I was looking at different things to go do. And every single job that I took coming out of after my college and master's was because that company was willing to invest in me in education. Right. So my first job was with Microsoft. And right at the time, they were creating a marketing leadership recruit program. So I was part of a group of like 30 or so individuals, a cohort, and they sent us to executive education. They had rotations. They helped us grow. Right. My next job was with a consulting firm, with McKinsey. First thing they did, as part of the kind of negotiation, they sent me to a mini MBA. So they had their own my mini MBA program. And so I've been just very fortunate to see like when an employer is willing to invest in you, right, as an employee. One, it makes me want to go work there. Right. Two, and of course, like I remember very fondly, right, these employers and what they've done for me and the leg up that they've done. So that loyalty is always there. And so when I kind of continued my journey, and to become an investor and an executive at different companies, I realized what I got was not normal. Right. And so I went to an operating company and a learning company. And, when we looked at kind of the L&D offerings for my team, I had a team of like 300, 400 people, and our offerings to kind of transform. And it was like, wow, this is like so hard. Like, how do we go give them the education, the learning, right? Oh, well, we have tuition reimbursement. We'll let them go figure it out, right? And it's just so different when somebody says to you as part of recruiting, as part of the conversation, we're investing in you from the very beginning. You come with us, we're going to take you on a career journey. Then hey, we're going to hire you. Good luck, figure it out, maybe do something type thing. And so, for me, I got to, when I was then, my prior role to InStride here, I got to run a large team, and a big part of that large team was actually creating and working with L&D to figure out how to transform my folks, my workforce, and help them get that leg up and continue to grow and get more digital. And it was just hard. It was just so hard. And so when we kind of started InStride, we looked at this, and when we were looking at kind of what are the different problems and the challenges we can go solve around education, so one of the things is like, how do we just even make it easier? Just for a corporation, like why should it be so hard? Right? It's so easy for a corporation to say, oh, let me give you free lunch. Let me go give you gym membership. But why would it be so hard for an organization to say, I want to invest in my people, education and skills, right? And so that's really a big part of what we were trying to do.
I can see in your path why you are a perfect fit for InStride and how these things are kind of evolving. So, how education is a benefit now, and it used to be just, okay, we're going to reimburse you, but now it's diving deeper into the actual person, and it is an important benefit to both the employee and the employer, which is amazing. I'm very curious. So what are some steps that leaders can take to successfully start this and really realize that this is something that is going to give you returns? I know there are certain places that I've worked that was just like, hey, go ahead, good luck, and here's some candy on your appreciation day. But I've also been to places where, you've had the mentors and the people who have actually not only given you an opportunity to learn off and outside of the corporation, but also inside the corporation. Some steps that leaders can start to take to successfully kind of upskill and reskill their workforce in these crazy times of employment, fluctuation of numbers.
Yeah. So I think the really exciting thing, honestly, I mean, look, we obviously are in crazy times, as you said, right? But I think one of the things, maybe side things, maybe not a benefit of but one of the things that obviously came out of it was just, I think, this recognition now by companies that their people matter. Their workforce matters, right? Whether it's you look at the supply chain, whether it's staffing the front line, whether it's right, all of that I think just really came to the forefront of people's minds, right? And so I remember before pandemic when you talk to CEOs, it's kind of like, I get the people thing, but I got my products and I'm running the stuff, and I really got to invest in technology to automate some stuff here and there, and machine learning and AI and all that, right? And it's like, oh, I got to focus on those fancy buzzword type things, right? And it's like, yeah, my people, yeah, they're fine, right? But as we kind of went through, and of course, early on in the pandemic, it was like, oh no, running around like your head chopped off and trying to figure out what's going on, right? But as you kind of as we went through it, I think people just really came to this realization that wow, like your workforce is your company, right? Like that is what makes it, right? Like day to day, it is the people that are at your company that are making the decisions, that are holding the pieces together, that are problem solving and working through things, that are delivering the value that you expect and you need to go convey. And I think that's really helped be in that mind, that seed hopefully has been planted in now in most executives' minds. And I think the bridge that we spend a lot of time on is making that connection between that little seed in your mind that says, yes, my people matter. And when I say my people matter, I need to invest in my people and think of them as an asset that is right, that is appreciating, right? It's not a HR thing. It's not a, oh, let me go, oh, look, CHRO, go figure out my culture, right? CHRO, go figure out my people, right? It is core, right? If you are a CEO, if you're a business unit leader, if you are, right? But literally every single, like CFO, right? Like every single person at the C-suite should be thinking, hopefully thinking now, wow, my biggest challenge going forward is, am I going to have the right people with the right skills that allows me to build a sustainable business going forward? And I think when you start getting to that point, right, and then you start saying, okay, so then what is the lever that I pull? Like, so if I want to go make that happen, what are the levers I pull? And that's why workforce education is so important, because it is one of the few levers that you can pull that deliver, as you said earlier, the corporate value, like the real financial tangible value, right, of recruiting, retention, upskilling, right, skill, like just engagement, right? So there's real tangible things that we can quantify around the financial return, but also delivers on so many of your ESG commitments as a company, right? More and more people are saying, hey, what's your plan for sustainability? What's your plan for society? What's your plan, right? And this is one of those few things where it's the smart thing to do and it's the right thing to do, right? When you invest in education. And I think that's one of the powers of what we can do as we kind of bring this to the bear. And I think unlocking that in the executive's mind, I think that's our biggest piece. And I think that's what executives can do, is just really think about your own people differently.
And you know, what's interesting about this is, how is this affecting post-secondary level institutions, right? So you've worked with Arizona State, which is very innovative, probably one of the most, I think it was ranked the most innovative in this area. How it used to be, you come out of college and then bam, then you get into a corporation and then, you know, you do your job. But then there was that separation of corporate was looking at post-secondary like, yo, this isn't working. Like, your students are coming out and we're going to have to retrain them. And they didn't see that as an opportunity, but you guys see that as an opportunity. So like, you know, how effective in strategic leadership comes into play with this? What's happening between those two institutions, and what do you guys see going forward?
I think that's I think you hit the nail on the head, Peter. Like, so, you know, prior to this role, I ran the skills business at Cengage, right, as a large publishing company. And one of the things we saw was exactly as you said, right? You go talk to the employers and they're saying, hey, I can't hire people. The people that are coming out don't have the right skills. I understand why they're not like teaching the right thing. Just give me the people, I'll train them. Right? And so they're kind of on one side of it. And then you talk to the institutions and the academic institutions on the other side, and they're saying, I don't know what the employers want, and I don't know how to get the people through. And by the way, I'm measured on employment now, right? Because gainful employment, and I'm measured on the employment, and I want to make sure people are employed. But somehow, like, they're not connecting the dots around like what that looks like. And there's all these conferences where they were trying to bring the workforce and the right. And I would go to all of these, and you would see the two sides. And one side would be like, oh, I have these workforce people at the community colleges or the academic institutions, and then you have all these like recruiting people, and somehow they kind of kept talking past each other. And so one of the exciting things about, you know, when we started InStride was like, how do we bridge that, right? Really, and I think, Michael Crow likes to say, we're a boundary spanning organization, right? Is how do we kind of help the different clock speeds and the different these different stakeholders connect, right? Because we know, right, like corporations, ROI, speed, configurability, right? Ease of use, administration, right? Turnkey, right? All of those things, like just give it, make it easy, make it fast, right? Make it better, productive, cost efficient, right? And then you talk to, and they're not that those aren't things that they want to do, but they're also very, very, of course, rightfully so, learner outcomes, learner success, right? Graduation rates, right? Admission standards, right? And all of those things. And of course, delivering quality institution. And sometimes, they're maybe not talking the same language, moving at the same speed. So I think that's the beauty of having organizations like us, is we can go work with folks like the Arizona State University, the City University of New York, the University of Memphis, the University of Virginia, right? All of these amazing institutions, right? And say, well, this is what corporations are looking for, right? Here's all the corporations that we talked. This is what they're looking for. This is how they need to go serve. This is, are they looking at cost? Are they looking at accessibility? Are they looking at admissions? Are they looking at graduation? Are they looking at type of program, right? Do you have the right type of programs? What type of programs do you need? Are they the right length, right? And so we get to bring that information to these academic partners. And, we've been very selective in the academic partners we work with, because we only want to work with partners that want to work with corporations and serve the working adults, right? And it's not for everybody, right? I mean, that's the honest truth. Like, well, we've talked to lots of academic partners, and a lot of them are like, I'm not really ready for that. We have a bunch of other stuff. Our academic units aren't really focused on this, right? We got to go through a bunch of different teams, and right, some aren't ready for it, right? But the ones that we've worked with, I mean, they're jumping in, right? They're saying, tell us, give us the information. They're hungry for it. Right? Put us in contact with the corporate partners. Tell us what they need. We are here to stand ready to serve, right, these corporate partners, because these learners, these working adult learners, I mean, this is where it is, right? If you think about the life cycle of learning, right, you can either serve the folks that in that 4 years, the traditional student, right? You can either serve a learner that's in those 4 years, and then hopefully, you probably never see it, or you're talking about serving somebody for the rest of the 60 years that they have to work. Right. And so if you think about, even from an traditional economic sense, if you're an economic professor, or you think about finance, right, you say, wait a minute, should I focus on the market of the 18-year-old, right, traditional, or should I focus on the 60 years in which somebody needs to work and this lifelong learner? How do I serve them, right? And vice versa. And how do we bring that same academic expertise to corporations, so that the corporation feels like they're actually heard, and that they're getting what they need, and they actually are finding the right people to fill the talent gaps that they have.
If I heard that a university is working with, now I'm telling you, I'm a parent of a junior in high school. If I heard that and they're working with this entity, and my son or daughter is interested in that, I would actually be more privy to send my kid that way, right? Like, I think it's also a recruiting piece for the post-secondary education pass that we have. Now, we know that, there's a challenge for universities. Now they're feeling the pinch on the other end, that 18-year-old, that traditional student coming in. And then also, what do I get out of this? It's brilliant. I still, for some reason in my own, and I'm sure you've had these conversations in your own head, why is this not working? And now you're creating these things with InStride. Let's take a look down the road, like 5 years from now, right? Let's see if we can put your wizard hat on and try to, wave the wand and see what happens here.
Crystal ball, right?
Exactly. Besides understanding what the lottery numbers are tomorrow, but what would you say in education? Like, how do you see this thing evolving? What do you see? InStride is a significant game changer here, because when I heard of it and I did my research on it, it's amazing, because I'm like, duh. I mean, it just makes sense, which sometimes in education we don't always make sense. But what do you see? What do you see happening in the next 5 years? Because we are looking at a different type of learner. We're also looking at a different type, and I'm talking about the next generation coming up, but you're also talking about adult learners and the way we learn and where we learn. So what are some of the things that you're seeing, employees or employers actually looking 5 years down the line? What are some trends that I'm going to give you the opportunity to say, hey, this is happening in 5 years? I'll show this again, and
yeah, we'll catch up then, and then I'll say check. Well, so a couple of things I think. that are like, I mean, they're fairly clear secular trends, right? One is just online, the acceptance of online learning, right? And I think again, pre-pandemic, there was always a little bit of like, oh, but my workforce, my learners want to go on campus and they want to go in person and they want to go at night and etc. They want to work and then go to a night school and all this stuff, and so they need and we were trying so hard to get. I don't know if that's actually the thing that they really want. Like really going out, working a whole day, and then having to drive somewhere to go sit in an in-person lecture hall. Yes, some folks will want to do that, but probably actually going home, sitting, right, having dinner, and then being able to go online and learn and have the asynchronous. And not, I think a lot of folks may kind of, hopefully don't kind of mistaken truly like what we have of working adult online learning with kind of what folks did during COVID, which was just throw a bunch of stuff on Zoom and then just watch some lectures, right? Like, right, what the university we work with have been serving online for so long and really built that modality in a way that you can really truly be immersive, right? Even in that online environment. And I think that's out of the, like, that's, cat's out of the bag, like it's going. Right. And I think COVID accelerated that. And I think now, right, there's no conversation that we have where our core partners like, oh, my people only want to do online learning. Great. That makes a ton of sense. Right. So I think that's only going to continue. And I think the interesting thing about most markets that go online is that there's a natural tendency to go towards scale. Right. Because what ends up happening, right, is as you get bigger, right, and I think that's what you can see with some of our partners, right, ASU, University of Memphis, and others, right, because they start having scale, because they start having traction, they can invest more, right, and so you have natural kind of economies of scale in a lot of these, and so you'll end up probably with a smaller sets, probably of just really top-notch online programs and kind of providers. And I think that's a trend that we're going to move towards. And I think we'll see that 5 years from now, that you're going to end up with a few of these that really are top notch, because with online, you're no longer just local, right? You're no longer just, your brand is no longer local, right? Your brand is really nationwide. It's even global, right? To a certain extent, right? Being able to do that. So that's clearly one. I think the second thing that we'll see, hopefully, is that this just becomes normal. I think, as you said, Peter, even for yourself, right now you've heard it. Now you're saying, hey, my son, maybe at the dinner table, we're chatting about like, where do you want to go? And and of course, look, there's still going to be a large portion of people that's like, oh, my kid wants to go to play sports, right, or other things, right, and of course, or they want to have a campus experience, etc. And I think that's great, and of course, folks will want to continue to do that. But I think there's going to be a different set of folks that are going to look around and say, huh, well, I want to make money, and I think more and more, talking with Gen Zs, and this is like a lot of folks have side hustles. They have like they're working on the side. They're on TikTok. They're on YouTube. Right? They're doing all this stuff, and they're like, what can I do? Like, I'm used to now making money. I'm used to now, etc. How do I, continue to feel like I can go make money and support myself and etc. and get my education, right? And so it's not whereas other, I think historically you might have said, oh, I have to gotta give this up now. I'm gonna go to school and maybe work like a cashier job at the, whatever campus store, right? And then and make some beer money, right? And then you come out of it and you have a bunch of debt because all you got was some beer money, and then now you got to work your way up, right? And so I think really that's the hope here, right? And there's a lot of talk around like wiping student debt and all the stuff, which I think is tremendous, and if we can do that, I think great. But I think the question is, how do we avoid the student debt in the first place, right? And if we can get corporations to play their part in this, which is, by the way, the rightful part, right? Because honestly, the beneficiary of a more skilled worker is the employer, right? So if there's anything that you should invest in, right? Like, as a company, is like if you invest in your people, every dollar you're putting in is accreting value to you, right? And so why wouldn't you invest in your own people and grow it? Right. And so how do we just make sure that recognition is there? And how do we encourage, like, whether it's regulation or other things that will further encourage this, right? I mean, and you probably know, right, there's the 5250, right? This magic number, right? Around like, that's the tax-free amount that an employer can invest in. Well, there's no real reason it should only be 52-50. It was just kind of set that way, 10-50, right? It's set that way. And one of the things that's been funny in these or interesting in these conversations as a corporation is because the government kind of set that number, corporations are so wedded to that number, right? Even though like actually many corporations would be like, actually, I'd love to cover full tuition, but this is the tax free amount for the government. And, if I go over 5250, then the employee has to go pay tax. So why don't I only pay 52? And you're like, no, like that's actually the wrong way to think about it. This is so valuable to the employee that you should be investing more. But it's because of some of these things, that just some of the historical things that we have. But I do hope that this just becomes the norm.
Yeah, there's a couple things there. Then you just shift over to blockchain. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But then, I mean, you think about, I think the other aspect, and you let me know, is this what's happening? Is this the benefit on the organizations? Is one of the biggest benefits is, I would talk to a lot of corporations. I interact with a few HR directors because as a high school business teacher, we want to know what the next generation is looking for. And keeping an employee for 2 years is now a win. And then you have to go through the whole, restructuring skills sets and bringing somebody in. And those costs are probably going to be in addition to that 5,000 at 5250. And that's probably going to be way more than just throwing out an X amount of money, a little bit over that, to educate your, your employees and keep them on. One good success story that you don't have to mention names or businesses unless you want to. Shoot it out. What's the best? Like, what is a great success story that you have seen that you can see that, man, I would love to replicate that?
So I think there's, I guess, many different types of success stories. And I think, look, one of the exciting things about workforce education is your success stories come in many different ways, right? You have the success story for the company in terms of the financial benefit. You have the success story of the brand and the loyalty that this has. You also have the success story of the learners themselves and how transformative this is for the learner, and avoiding debt and going back to school. So maybe and a lot of it also depends on a big part the strategic objectives of the program, right? So so I'll just throw out a couple of examples, right? But today, for example, 20% of the people that join Starbucks as a barista cite the fact that it's the SCAP program, the Starbucks College Achievement Program, is the reason why they're joining. Right. And so if you think about that from a recruiting perspective, right, and then you can talk about that, and it's a battlefield out there, right, to go recruit people, right? But when you can say, like, yeah, 20 people walk in the door and say, yep, I'm ready to do this because Starbucks believes in me, Starbucks believes in education, right? And that obviously makes a huge difference. And for somebody like us, Starbucks, right, having enough people to be able to keep your store open, right, makes a difference, right, in terms of your profit, right? Every hour you open longer, as more people coming in, because they just always have people. The shorter the wait times, the more people are happy, the more people, right? So all of those, like the people aspect of it, and the whole experience of Starbucks is around the people and the barista and the whole ambiance, right? And so being able to keep people makes a huge difference. And and people that are participating in education stay 50 to 100% longer, right? So your retention is much longer. And again, thinking about not only do you bring somebody in, but you think about, wow, what does it take to train a barista? Right, to be able to deal with Jonathan's order, who would like to pick like the random milk and the random sugar levels and the different levels of ice and right, and making sure that's right. I mean, think about like what does it take to train somebody in doing that, right? And what does it mean when somebody decides, what, after 3 months they walk out, versus, as you said, right, they stay 2 years. That's a huge difference, right? And think about that. That's a huge. Also, just think about it's different in terms of the stress levels of the manager and managing the store, and so all of those, right? And so clearly there's like, and again, that's huge successes for the company, right? And that's why obviously they continue to do that. Similarly for Uber, right? Their successes are around ensuring that they're keeping their best drivers, and that they continue to bring on new drivers, right? I mean, one of the things with as we went through COVID is, all these folks stopped driving, and they're trying to bring all those drivers back on. And again, having drivers is the lifeblood of Uber's business, right? You don't have drivers, right? Prices go up. People don't want to take an Uber, right? And so they got to bring these drivers back on. And again, education plays a huge part. And I think the beauty of what the Uber program is not only are they saying, oh, you can use it as a driver, but you can, if you want, instead of using it yourself, you can also give that benefit to a dependent, right? And so now you're driving for your family, right? And your family's getting education paid for, right? And that's, again, something just, so if you think about, actually the family members generally are going through at a higher rate. They're actually being successful, getting enrolled because they're that excited about it, right? And this is so meaningful for them. And again, so, that's a success from a kind of company strategic goal of what they're trying to do, right? Is keeping and retaining these amazing drivers and what they're trying to do. We were working with a retailer recently, and we're doing some of the math, right? I think you talked a little about actually the math of and kind of what the ROI looks like. And what we were able to show just on retention alone, right? Just looking at the retention rates and of people participating in learning versus not, right? After paying for the tuition, it was basically saving them $2,000 a person, because they were churning, like their people were just churning through so quickly, right? But when the person actually is participating in education and you're actually funding their education and you're actually believing in them, right? Those folks stay and they're willing to be more loyal. And again, and that's just some simple math around retention rates, right? That's not even counting the overall broader benefits, engagement, all of those things, right? And so I think that's some of the math, to your point, that we can go do and that we try to do to go demonstrate success there. And of course, I mean, just the learner stories are just absolutely amazing and transformative, right? One of our corporate partners, the executive, one of the participants actually is the assistant of one of the executives that were the prime sponsor, one of the main sponsors of the program. And so every day the sponsor got to hear from her assistant how amazing, right, this transformed, because the assistant would never have been able to go back to school, right? She had to go leave, she had to stop because of family. She had ended up, with kids and, had to take care of it. And then, then eventually went back to work and just kind of stopped the education. But because of this, that assistant now not only is way more engaged, of course, right? And of course, so grateful for the company and, even grateful for the executive. But it also means that, forevermore, they're going to be loyal. And there's now a growth path and a career path for that person, right, to grow out of that and do more even in their role. And again, those are the just life-changing, I think, stories that you get to hear every day. So
it's changed from a either or, right? I'm either going to work or I'm going to go to school or get educated somehow in different entities, to a yes and. That's what InStride does. That's amazing, and I really encourage people to head over. So where I want to kind of round out here. How can people get involved? Corporations, we have a lot of educators who are interested. How can people connect with you in InStride and learn a lot more?
You can always reach out to me. I'm easy to find, john@instride.com. But obviously we have our website, instride.com. You can, of course, always get connected there. We have lots of different avenues to get to us, but on the academic partner side, we're always looking for great education institutions, great education providers who want to serve working adults, who think that this is a market that they're willing to kind of work with us on to make sure that they can serve them correctly, they can help those learners be successful, because it is a little bit harder, right? It is not, right? They're not full-time, they're part-time, right? They have to go, obviously between work and life, they're now trying to go into education. So it is, there's a higher investment in many cases around student success and services and stuff like that. So, but if that's what you're excited about and you're interested in that, of course, we love to work with you as a partner there. And then on the corporate partner side, absolutely, just, we're here, we're excited about helping design a program, right? I think our approach is very, to a certain extent, right, as we talked about earlier, right? The first thing we got to do is get that mindset at that CEO, CXO level, right? Because if you can flip that switch, right, and again, that's a big part of what our business development team does, is to help flip that switch. Because if you can flip that switch, then the rest of the organization says, "Got it, we got it, right? We got the green light. We can go now build a kind of transformative, exciting program," and that's what we help you do, right? And we know that not everybody's going to be the same, right? Some folks will say, "You know what? I just want to go make I have a large front line. I want to go help them, help society. I want to go give them transformative degrees, etc." Like that's maybe some folks. Some folks may say, we have partners that say, "You know what? I really need STEM, right? I need people in the science field. I really have that, right? So help me build a program that really drives kind of more STEM, and what does that look like, right?" There's some that might say, "I need it," and so we really work with them to go map all that out, right? Really help them understand, right? We know our academic partners. We bring them to bear. We map it out, right? Design the program, and then basically we're set up to go run these things for you. Right? Like, how do we drive the employee engagement? How do we make sure that people understand if they're eligible? How do we make sure they get connected to the right thing? How do you get the data so you know where is the person at every step, right? Where are your learners, right? Because at the end of the day, right, as InStride, I think one of the things we like to talk about is that we are enabling that connection between the employer and the employee.
Yeah.
Right. That is what workforce education does, is really build that connection and relationship. And so that's what we're here for.
That is exactly what's needed, and that's the unique value proposition, right, Jonathan? That's it, right? Connecting. And it's exciting to see this happening in your organization and helping build the next generation of employees and employers, which is super interesting. Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for taking out a piece of your day to chat with me on Disrupt Education, man. We really appreciate you, and the listeners really appreciate what they've just heard.
Awesome. Well, and again, thank you so much, Peter, for having me. It's been a real pleasure, and I can see why folks love this. You asked great questions, so this is really
I've got great fans too. So, well, thank you all for listening. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time on Disrupt Education.